Hello, a very quick thoughts video from me this week on everything that's been happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Deadpool and Wolverine hit theaters, had resounding success, great reviews from both critics and audiences, and to add the cherry on top of the shit cake that it is, Marvel have just announced who their next big bad for the Avengers is going to be. It's Victor Von Doom. Given what is happening with Kang, they've just decided to do away with his storyline entirely, and they've decided to go down a different route, casting Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom. But we'll get to that a little later on in the video, right? So what we'll do now is we'll break this video down into three sections. The first section we'll discuss Deadpool and Wolverine, fully spoiler free, a quick summary of what I thought of the film. The second part, we'll talk about the spoilerific parts of the film, stuff that I enjoyed, stuff I didn't. And the third section of this video or audio, in case you're listening to this on Apple, will center more around the announcement of Doctor Doom and why I am not a big fan of it. So anyway, let's just jump straight into it. So Deadpool and Wolverine was released on the weekend, that is the 26th of July of 2024, has had resounding success. Box office registers are ringing again. Marvel is happy to have a hit back on its hands. Generally, the response for the most part has been overwhelmingly positive. Now, my thoughts on the film, I liked it, but I also thought it wasn't as good as people are making it out to be. So let's quickly get out with the positives. I thought it was really funny in parts. I thought it retained a lot of the Deadpool charm that we've grown to know and love over the last decade or so. Hugh Jackman, I thought, was exceptional as Wolverine, always is. There's never been a bad Hugh Jackman Wolverine performance as far as I can remember. I'd say some of the cameos really did justice. I liked the opening set piece, even though I'm a little conflicted about it, and I'll get into it in the spoiler section. Overall, I felt like the movie lacked a bit of soul. Coming to the negatives, I feel like a big chunk of what made the Deadpool films so memorable was missing in this one. And I know it's a creative choice given who the creative team and who the film has to cater to, but I just didn't feel like I was watching a movie that had that Deadpool soul, which even for two's fault still had it. One, of course, is like a love story masquerading as a superhero film. It was more of a setup film for what Marvel is about to do. Like it's the unfortunate coincidence where a film is tasked with shouldering and cleaning up the mess a studio has made with several other entities in the same franchise, right? For the most part, does a good job of it, but as a film, it does suffer from having to do that role. I'd recommend you go check it out. Like I've told all my friends and everyone around me that has asked my opinion and have obviously been wary after hearing my skepticism about it. So I'd recommend you go check it out regardless, and then you're able to like form your own decision. And even if you never clicked on this video or this podcast, and you would have still gone to see it regardless, right? Like, who am I? I have like 100 followers on YouTube, bringing some of that self-deprecating Deadpool humor to the channel. But that's, again, quick thoughts summarizing that last section. Funny, lacks a bit of soul. Go check it out, form your own opinion. Not my favorite MCU film, and definitely not my favorite Deadpool film. Possibly the worst among the three that have come out so far. Now let's get to the spoiler section of this video, right? The big issue I had with it removed the whole, or rather it just didn't do justice to the whole Wade Vanessa storyline, which in my personal opinion forms the crux of the Deadpool trilogy, or at least the story anyway. The first one is built around his relationship with Vanessa. The second one, because of what happens to her at the start of the film, she ends up dying, and then his journey to like bring her back while also him becoming a better person. And here he is again dealing with personal demons, stuff that we've all had to do so in the past. And while he's dealing with these demons, he ends up pushing the people he loves away from him, and he's trying to like fix that wrong while also trying to become a better person. In theory, this should have worked, but maybe it's Sean Levy, and this is probably a testament as to his line of work and how I just don't seem to get it. I have famously disliked his past work. I just feel like he is not unable to carry that emotional heft and bring it onto screen in the way other directors are able to. Even though it's mentioned that Deadpool really wants to save them, and it's emphasized that he really cares about these people, the film doesn't show that to you. tells it to you, and that for me is like the biggest cardinal sin of cinema, right? The exposition is being read out to you in different parts of the film, as opposed to it being shown to you. That just didn't sit with me. I just didn't connect with Deadpool this time around. And as much as I love Hugh Jackman and he's doing a great job as Wolverine, I feel like he's in a completely different film. Yes, they're going for the buddy cop genre where you have the grumpy old man and the goofy second lead, ironically the first lead in this one. But there are points in the movie where it just didn't gel. Like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine at some point is going through a really is opening himself up about his past trauma, and Deadpool is continuing to quip. It was funny in 2016 when nobody had done it, but now we're like almost 10 years into the franchise, and it's starting to weigh a little heavy, given that this has almost become Ryan Reynolds' personality in real life. Like the Mint Mobile ads, he's quipping like Deadpool. Aviation Gin, he's quipping like Deadpool. Welcome to Wrexham, he's quipping like Deadpool. Yes, I know he's the perfect actor to have ever been cast to play this role, but it's getting a little heavy and it's getting a little annoying. And not in a good way. Deadpool is an annoying character, but there were points of the film I was like, oh, dude, just breathe. Like, let the film breathe for a bit. I think that's why I felt like this film lacked that personal connection for me, that its soul was missing. It just felt, especially as we got to the end of this film, felt like big assembled set pieces that were very shortly put together. Like if you go on YouTube or on Twitter, you will be able to find clips of really bad CGI bits in there, which shouldn't be the case for such a huge entity, right? As for the cameos, I'm gonna say this: the Henry Cavill cameo annoyed me, fully took me out of the experience. As for the others, Chris Evans popping up, I knew something was off from the very beginning. We've got the classic misdirections, the red and the blue, the Captain America aura, Chris Evans, obviously. But I was unsure with what they were going to do with it. And when he goes flame on, and I let out an audible, oh, are you kidding, in the theater. Somehow it wasn't even the biggest surprise given what happens with the other cameos that come through. Elektra was, I'd heard of it. I'd heard Jennifer Garner was back in it, but I was unsure. The one person who I thought I would never come back was Wesley Snipes' Blade. It has been 5 years since Mahershala Ali's Blade got announced, and in that time, Wesley Snipes had stopped playing Blade for I think 15 years, and then, or like almost coming up on 2 decades at this point, he came back to play as Blade, cracks a joke about how there's only ever been one Blade. It was absolute perfection watching it in the theater and having the history, knowing the history of his equation with Ryan Reynolds and what happened on Blade Trinity, kind of helped cement, that appearance a lot more. Channing Tatum is Gambit, and I think Channing Tatum is ridiculously miscast. I think he should be cast more for his comic roles and his comic timing, because his Gambit and the Cajun accent that he's running with was absolute perfection. I have laughed so much at that stupid accent of his. Like, it gets funnier and funnier the more he talks, and I thought that cameo was played to perfection. Moving on, a couple of things that really took me out of the film. There were times in this movie there was a bunch of product placement, and it just became like a vehicle to carry your family around. Like Welshpool showing up, as much as Paul Mullen is like a cult hero in Wrexham, he didn't need to be in this movie. It kind of took me out of it because I started thinking of Ryan Reynolds as a person as opposed to the character he's playing. Blake Lively is Lady Deadpool, his children as Baby Pool and as Kid Pool. Not my thing. And I know people have laughed and really enjoyed it, but again, not my most favorite thing in the world. Emma Corrin, I think, is wasted in this movie. The character is interesting. Cassandra Nova is an interesting character, but again, very poorly written, in a bit disservice the Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds part of the story. I felt like with any other director capable of handling emotional heft, this movie would have worked, but just didn't. And I'm hoping another entry where, much like Captain America had his renaissance his revival with the Winter Soldier, I hope another director comes on board and is able to like take that character in a different direction. Anyway, those were my thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine. Let's move on quickly to the Marvel announcement. So Marvel announced the new title of its Fantastic Four film. I think it's called The First Steps. Then to end the Comic-Con, Hall H Comic-Con panel, they brought out a bunch of people. They brought out the Russo brothers, who are back in the hot seat to direct Doomsday, Avengers Doomsday, and Avengers Secret Wars. Not before this announcement was Harrison Ford made a wonderful appearance where he spoke about his enthusiasm playing Red Hulk and how he did it for the money, just kind of forgot a bunch of things and just went with it. Love Harrison Ford, love how much of a shit he cannot give. But that's all besides the point. The point is they announced the actor playing Doctor Doom, and it happens to be Robert Downey Jr. So Rohit, my co-host, sent me a message this morning, and I woke up to it. The first thing I saw this morning was Rohit going, ha, 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 ha. And I opened it up, and it took me a while. In the morning when you wake up, you're trying to get a sense of your bearings. I opened up the link, and it said Doctor Doom will be the main antagonist in Avengers Doomsday, and will be played by Robert Downey Jr. And it took me a few seconds to make sense of what I was reading. And then when I went on Twitter and I found the video, I just let out a deep, deep sigh. Now, Marvel has been fucking things up amazingly since Endgame concluded. Some would even argue that Endgame was when Marvel should have taken a back seat and said, oh, you know what? Pause. Let's take a 3-4 year break and come back to this, because we've done it. We have built a 23-24 film franchise out of nothing, and we have achieved the impossible. Let's go out on a high and then come back to the drawing board much later with fresh thoughts and fresh ideas. But funnily enough, that's not how things work, right? We need to draw every single penny out of an entity before it eventually falls to the dark ground and collapses and dies. And it's no different with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has had a history of missteps since Endgame. I think a couple of, if you ask me, I've liked maybe 3 films to have come out of that entire post-Endgame run in no particular order. Spider-Man No Way Home was nice. That's a movie that does the cameo bits well and has an emotional core. Like, I can watch it and I can still connect with those characters. The second half of that film, John Watts is like, hey, he has trauma. Peter's whole persona is built around trauma, and let's make the audiences care for these characters. And I just didn't get that with Deadpool this time. But I digress. No Way Home was one such film. The other being, I'm a big fan of Sam Raimi, and I thought the Multiverse of Madness was a great time. And I also liked Guardians Volume 3 for the same reasons as I mentioned for No Way Home. I felt like there was an emotional heartbeat to that film. James Gunn is a lot of things, but I feel like he's really, all 3 Guardians films keeps that emotional heartbeat at the center of its stories, which is why I was a big fan of the third one. Apart from that, it's been a massive shit show. And this announcement felt very much like a Hail Mary. Like, we need to bring a character back. But what it does, and this is an issue with comic books in general, is it dulls certain moments in the film's history. I felt it happened as I was watching Deadpool and Wolverine, and I watched Deadpool fling Wolverine's corpse around and use it as a weapon to end things. Bye. The impact of him dying at the end of Logan just went out the window. And similarly, watching a variant of Tony Stark show up to become Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday takes away from the moment at the end of Endgame. It bookended his character. The end of the first Iron Man film ends with him saying, ladies and gentlemen, I am Iron Man, and his final line in the film is, I am Iron Man. And it was a perfect arc. Like, I'm a big fan of Iron Man 3. I know it's not a lot of people's favorite films, but in terms of like having a superhero arc that delivered on all fronts, I think Robert Downey Jr. had a great run as Iron Man and should have left it as such. This whole Doomsday thing, again, we're capitalizing on the person he is as opposed to creating a character that people will be conflicted over. Like, you're conflicted over the character already because he resembles the most beloved character in the MCU. That's not how it should be. You take Thanos, for example. A lot of people understood his intentions in Infinity War before he became this full-on psycho again in Endgame. But you felt like, okay, there's some sort of depth to this character that is established in the film. You're not hoping that the audience forms the emotional attachment prior to coming into the cinemas. That's just weak writing. I'm not a big fan of it. I felt like it's doing the Deadpool thing where it's fan servicing. Yes, superhero films for the longest time have been vehicles of fan service, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But it should not be at the cost of good storytelling. And I feel that's what's about to happen with the Doctor Doom casting. It feels cheap. And in a weekend where I watched a film that felt cheap, that felt like it was going for the most low-hanging of fruits and was trading emotional beats for a story filled with fancy, shiny things. It is a bad step, and I could be fully wrong when I say this. It could be a really bad step in tanking superhero films forever. Superhero films aren't doing the best right now. They're on a bit of a down low. And I think this is not the right way to take things forward. But time will tell. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments about the 3 things you've spoken. And if you've disagreed with me, also let me know. And yeah, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this video. I am ending this video if you guys haven't realized already. I just love to know your thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine, on the Doctor Doom casting, and yeah, let's see what the future holds for the MCU and the DC. I don't know what's happening there, but yeah, we'll see what's happening there as well. Take care. We'll be back next week with a full episode. See you soon.